We'd have y equals 0. Well, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 15 and add together to give me 8. So we'd have 3, and we would have 5. Well, that means we have two zeros. We have a 0 at y equals negative 3 and a 0 at y equals negative 5. Now, here's the weird thing. We are still going to graph those points on what is usually our x-axis, because usually these are x values. Remember, just because we usually put x's on here doesn't mean it's 100% the x-axis. It is just your independent variable. It is the number that you plug in and see what you get out. So this is our independent variable. Right now our independent variable is y. So as odd as it seems, this would be your y-axis. So we'd plot a point at negative 3 and negative 5. It doesn't have to be exact, because all we're really concerning ourselves with is our graph opens up. So the only way I can do that is to look like that. The only place that what I input is less than 0 is all of this. Because if I plug in negative 4, I bet you I get a negative number out. And if you're ever not sure, just plug in negative 4 and see if it comes out as a negative number. It's not hard to just plug one number in. I know for you guys on the test, it's going to be the end of the world if you have to check one answer. You're going to go, I think I know the answer. I don't have 5 seconds to check this. But if you want to be a good student and not miss points, just plug in a negative 4, make sure it comes out as negative, and it will. It'll come out as a negative answer. So we're looking at from negative 5 to 3, and since there is a less than or equal to, we have to use brackets. So do you bracket negative 5 to bracket negative 3 bracket. That is our answer. That is all the work you need to show. In fact, you don't have to show a ton of work, because if you know what they look like, you just know it's between or the two ends. We just had to figure out it's between, and so it's negative 3 and negative 5. All right, questions on that? So that would have been A, right? Cool. All right, questions from the homework. So that would be 3.1, bravo. Bravissimo. Sí. Is yes in Spanish. What is 7 asking us? 7 is saying, a farmer wants to make a rectangular enclosure using wall as one side and 120-meter fence as the other 3 sides. So that's the one I kind of started with you guys yesterday. And what I said yesterday is this wall right here is not part of the fence I want to use. I have 120 meters of fence. That would just be a width, a length, and a width. We're not doing that barn. So in other words, to get from here to here to just here, I have 120 meters of fence. That means adding that together, 2 W's plus L equals 120. Well, we know we're trying to maximize an area. Area is always going to be length times width, no matter whether I'm using one wall or I'm not. It's always going to be length times width. Well, that means I need to either solve for the L or the W. I chose to solve for the L. I said subtract 2W from both sides, and I have L equals negative 2W plus 12. Then what I did is I took that, I plugged that in for my L value. I simplified, and I came up with negative 2W squared plus 120W. That's going to equal my area. Well, that really shouldn't say W, and this should actually say W, and this would be my area that it would spit out. All right, so that's a maximized type problem. I need to find the vertex of this. I need to find the x value of the vertex. Well, the x value of vertex is negative b over 2a. So I just need to do negative b over 2a, which equaled 30, which meant my width needs to be 30. Then you take that 30 and plug it in there, and you come up with your length being 60. It's just a 30 by 60, which equals 1,800. Okay? Other questions? Yeah? Number 6. Number 6. Do you have a specific question, I guess?
If I found the x, I don't know how you graph it.
Okay, so we came up with, correct me if we're on the right one, is negative x squared minus 9 is less than 0, right? All right, so if I wanted to see when that equals 0, we go x squared minus 9 equals 0. I would move 9 to the other side. Negative x squared equals 9er. We'd have x squared equals a negative 9. We'd take the square root of both sides, and we'd have x equals plus or minus. Well, when we take the square root of that, that would be I squared of 9. So it'd be plus or minus 3i. Are you okay with that, or do you want me to go back?
No, I'm
Okay. That means there are no real zeros. That means your graph does not cross the x-axis. If it crosses the x-axis, you have zeros. So what you're going to ask yourself, is this going up or down? It's going down. So we have a graph that is going down, correct? And can't cross this axis. Well, if it was up here, it would cross the axis, right? So it must be somewhere down here. I don't know where it is, but I do know it's somewhere down here. And it doesn't matter where we graph it. Because what it's asking for is, when is this lower than that line? What was that? Negative infinity to infinity. Our answer is all real solutions. No matter what I plug in, I'm going to get a negative answer out. This is the closest I'll get to positive, but it won't be positive. It'll be negative infinity to infinity. So if you don't have real zeros, it means it doesn't cross the axis, so you have to determine where you're going to put it. If this was positive, we'd have to move it up here, in which case it would have no solutions. Okay? Yeah. Other questions? Yeah. 8A, just setting it up. All right, so we have, I did the drawing, right? So suppose you have 120 meters of fence to make 2 adjacent rectangular enclosures. So we're going to have something that looks like, let's see if I can draw this. So 2 rectangular enclosures that are back to back. So that's going to look something like that. 2 adjacent rectangular enclosures, which are going to be the same size. All right, so that means that I have a length going this direction, and I have a width, a width, a width, and I also have a length down here. I have 102 meters to make that, so basically I have 3 widths plus 2 lengths is going to equal 102. But I want to know the area. And area is going to always equal length times width. So all you're going to do is you're going to solve for either L or W up here. So if you want to solve for L, we would just subtract 3W from both sides and have L would actually equal negative 3W plus 102 divided by 2, which you'd plug in for your L and come up with a quadratic formula again. And then it'll just be negative B over 2A once again to find your maximum. Are other questions? Going once, going twice, sold. All right, today we're going to talk about the remainder theorem. And more or less, we're just looking to see, we're starting to look to see what happens when we divide polynomials by a smaller polynomial. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the remainder theorem. The remainder theorem says if R is the remainder when a polynomial p of x is divided by x minus c, where c is just a constant, it's just a number, so x minus 3, x minus 4, x plus 3, then the remainder would equal P of C. So for example, so if I have a polynomial and I divide it by x minus 3. I divide by x minus 3 and I get a remainder of 4. That would mean if I plugged in 3 to my equation, I would also get 4 out. So this is another way, rather than plugging it into the equation, to actually solve an equation or what it's going to be. This is going to prime us for tomorrow, where we're going to see if things go in evenly. Things go in evenly when there is no remainder. All right. So our first thing says find P of 3 if P of x equals 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus 4x minus 6. I agree. If you're just like, why are we doing this? Because it seems way easier just to plug in 3. I agree with that, but we're building up to a bigger concept. All right? We're just practicing this now so we can get to a bigger concept tomorrow. So yes, we could plug in 3. And I believe we get out like 15 or something like that. But we're going to see that both of these ways we're also going to get 15 out. All right, so we're trying to find P of 3. Well, P of 3 is realistically, how we're going to do it is we're going to divide by x minus 3. So rather than plugging in 3, we're going to divide by x minus 3, and we're going to get the exact answer out. On one side, we're going to do ordinary division, which is our long division. It is much harder than synthetic division, but bear with it. Bear with it because you need to know both ways. All right, for division, you put what you're dividing on the outside. Actually, let's put that down a little bit lower. So we have x minus 3. And what we're dividing is actually the 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus 4x minus 6. For those of you that don't remember how to do long division like this, usually your instincts are correct with division. Everything stays the same. When we are dividing by just a number, you just do what's the biggest thing that can go into that number, and then you bring it down and you subtract. You multiply and then you subtract. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this biggest power. I have 2x cubed. And we're going to see what I can multiply the biggest power over here by to make it equal 2x cubed. Well, we're going to multiply by 2x squared. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take that 2x squared and multiply it by x minus 3. So 2x squared times x does give me my 2x cubed. Then we're going to do 2x squared times a negative 3, which will be a negative 6x squared. Don't mess this next part up. What do you normally do? Yeah.
You subtract that lower number from the top.
You subtract that lower number from the top. If you do it as is, you're going to end up with 4x cubed minus 11x squared, and you got nowhere. So you have to remember to subtract the entire quantity. We are subtracting the entire quantity so that when this distributes, you're going to have 2x cubed minus 3x cubed, which is just 0. And then we're going to have negative 5x squared plus 6x, which will leave us with x squared. Just like normal division, you're going to bring down whatever's next. So that's that plus 4x. And we do it again. We say x times what gives me x squared? Well, that will just be a positive x. All right, x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 3 is a negative 3x. Don't just go straight down. Remember that you are subtracting, and you're subtracting both values. So that means it's x squared minus x squared, which gives you 0. And then we have plus 4x plus 3x, which will give us 7x. Carry down that negative 6. We need to figure out what do I multiply x by to give me 7x. So we're just going to multiply by 7. So that's going to give me 7x minus 21. Once again, we are subtracting that. You'll see I'll do those arrows every single time so I don't forget. 7x minus 7x is 0. Negative 6 plus 21 equals 15. That is your remainder. This right here, this 2x squared plus x, is known as your quotient. You will be asked in the homework to state your quotient and your remainder. The more important part today is your remainder. And that's because that 15 tells me that P of 3 equals, squiggly mark, but 15. So when I plug 3 in, I'll get 15 out. All right, synthetic division's a little easier. You just got to be careful of what number you're dividing by. So we are, once again, looking for P of 3. We're going to make sure synthetic division gives us the same answer. Once again, P of 3 is represented in x minus 3. However, with synthetic division, you are actually going to use 3. So you're going to, if I give you x minus 3, you're going to use the number that makes this 0. If you are given this, you are going to use 3. You have to know both offshoots. And you need to know how to go the opposite direction as well. With synthetic division, we're going to create this little blocky shape. And what we're going to do in that blocky shape, we're just going to put just numbers, no x's. It's just going to be our leading coefficients. I always put my x's above to make sure I put the right coefficients. So we have an x cubed. We have a certain number of x squareds. We have an x. And we have a constant. Now we look at what number's in front of x cubed. Well, that's a 2. The number in front of x squared is going to be a negative 5. The number in front of x is a 4. And our constant is a negative 6. With synthetic division, your first thing you're going to do is you're going to bring down that first number. So that 2 on the very left, you're just going to go ahead and bring that guy down. Boom. Now we kind of make this triangle, and we keep doing this over and over and over. We're going to take that 3. We're going to multiply it by this 2, and whatever we get is going to pop out here. So once again, we're going to take that 3. We're going to multiply it by 2. And what we get out, we are going to put there. So we have 3 times 2 is going to go ahead and give you 6. And negative 5 plus 6 is going to give you 1. So once again, this is going to be 3 times 2 will go up there. Our next step, let's change our color a little bit. Nope, that's not going to change much. We're going to take that 3. We're going to multiply by that 1. And we're going to put whatever we get there. So once again, we're going to have 3 times 1, which is going to equal 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. Our final move, let's do it in yellow, is take that 3, multiply by that 7. Whatever we get, we're going to put there. So we have 21. We have negative 6 plus 21 equals 15. That is your remainder. And your quotient is kind of hidden right here. What your quotient is, we started with x cubed. You're going to drop a power for all of them. So we start with x cubed. This is going to be your x squared. You start with x squared. This is going to be your x. You start with an x. This is going to be your constant. So your quotient is actually right here. So your quotient is going to be 2x squared plus 1x plus 7. The remainder is the most important part right now because that means P of 3 equals 15. Synthetic division is a lot easier, but you have to know how to use this in case you can't use synthetic division. Synthetic division only really works when it's x plus or minus a number. All right, there is one more step. That's substitution. You can do that on your own. You can make sure it's 15. I'm telling you it is. Plug it in and check it if you don't believe me. All right, we're going to go ahead and do that again. This time we're going to do one slightly different. So this one we're supposed to find the quotient and remainder for x to the 4th minus 14x squared plus 5x minus 9. And we're supposed to divide that by x plus 4. So let's start off with ordinary division. Ordinary division is x plus 4. Hang on, I'll move that down just a little bit. I just want to note that this is actually, let's leave it with f. That would be f of negative 4. It'd be like me plugging in negative 4. All right, long division is setting it up as is, but we got to be careful. I have x to the 4th. How many x cubes do I have? 0. I have 0 of them. You have to tell this formula you have 0 of them. So you do have to plus 0x cubed. You do have to either put it in there or leave a space. Then we have minus 14x squared plus 5x minus 9er. All right, I'm looking for x to turn into x to the 4th. What am I going to multiply by? What am I going to put on that very top right now? What am I going to start off with? Yeah. X to the 3rd. We're going to start with x cubed. Thank you. And then we'll distribute to both of them. So x cubed times x is x to the 4th plus 4x cubed. Don't forget you are subtracting. So we're going to go ahead and distribute that. X to the 4th minus x to the 4th is 0. 0x cubed minus 4x cubed is a negative 4x cubed minus 14x squared. What's the next number on my top? What is the next number I'm going to put here? Yeah, great. 4x squared. It's actually be negative 4x squared. Yep. So we're going to have negative 4x squared because negative 4x squared times x is our negative 4x cubed. So we do want these two to match up because we know we are going to subtract them. So we're going to use negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times 4 is going to be a negative 16x squared. Don't forget we are subtracting. So that would distribute to both of these. We'd have negative 14x squared minus, well, it actually is plus 16x squared is going to end up being 2x squared. I got to carry down that 5x. What's my next number? Someone new. What's that next number that's going to go up there? Brian?
Plus 2x.
Plus 2x. Thank you. Plus 2x. So now when I do 2x times x, that's going to give me my 2x squared. Plus 2 times 4, which would be 8x. I am subtracting that, so I'm going to make sure to distribute that negative sign. 2x squared minus 2x is 0. 5x minus 8x is going to be a negative 3x. Finally, I'm going to carry down that 9. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply by a negative 3. We're going to have negative 3x. And that'll be minus 12. We are distributing our negative, so it's actually plus 3x plus 12. Negative 9 plus 12 is going to equal 3. It does ask us to find the quotient and the remainder. I'm not asking you to do much. I'm just asking you in that case to label your remainder as 3. And your quotient is just what's on top, so that would be the quotient. That's all I need you to do. Circle it, label it. It doesn't ask for it, but I am going to put down on the bottom. I'm also going to put f of negative 4 equals 3. It doesn't ask for it, but you should recognize that because that's what we're actually doing. All right, synthetic division should come up with the exact same answer. So let's go ahead and use synthetic division. Well, when we're using synthetic division, and I'm trying to divide by x plus 4, well, that's actually looking for f of negative 4. So with synthetic division, we're actually going to divide by negative 4. So x plus 4, with synthetic division, you're going to divide by a negative 4. X minus 4, you divide by a positive 4. For synthetic division, we just need coefficients. Like I said, I always label them. You don't need to. I would label my first one as x to the 4th. I would x third, x squared, x, and finally my constant. It keeps you from making dumb mistakes. My leading coefficient in front of x to the 4th is just 1. The coefficient in front of x cubed is 0. The coefficient in front of x squared is negative 14. Coefficient in front of x is 5. My constant is negative 9. For synthetic division, you drop the 1. You drop your first number. That's how you start. Then you take your 4, you multiply it by that number, and whatever you get out, you put there. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Then we take that negative 4 and multiply it by that negative 4 here. So we go negative 4 times negative 4 equals a positive 16. And let's put that back in black. Negative 14 plus 16 equals 2. Then we're going to take that negative 4, we're going to multiply that by that 2, and put whatever we get out there. Well, negative 4 times 2 is a negative 8. Uh, 5 minus 8 equals a negative 3. And so finally, we're going to take that. Ugh, that's an ugly color, but we're going to use it. We'll go negative 4 times a negative 3, which equals a positive 12. Put that result right there. Negative 9 plus 12 equals 3. 3 is your remainder. For synthetic division, you need to rewrite it. This is your coefficient, but it's not written yet. We have to realize that if this is x to the 4th, we're going to drop 1 power here. So this is actually our x cubed, which would make this my x squared, which would make this my x, which would make this my constant. So our quotient is going to be x cubed minus 4x squared plus 2x minus 3. That would be your quotient. Remainder, quotient, done. That's the one hard thing about synthetic division. You do have to write your answer out. For long division, it's already done for you. Synthetic, just make sure you finish it off. All right, 2 more problems, and then we're done. We're supposed to do f of negative 2, and it says use synthetic division. So we're using f of negative 2, so we're going to use a negative 2. For synthetic division, we need to list all of our leading coefficients. That means I got to list one for x squared, x, and my coefficient. Even though x cubed has 1, the rest of them are going to be 0. Even if they're all zeros, you have to list them all. Starts out the same. We're going to drop that down, and we'll have 1. Multiply by negative 2, and we have negative 2 there. 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. 0 plus 4 is a positive 4. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. We have negative 8 right there. Since that is your remainder, your answer is going to be f of negative 2 equals a negative 8. It doesn't ask for your remainder. It doesn't ask for your quotient, so you just have to give an answer. It says f of negative 2 equals what? If I plug in negative 2, what do I get out? You should get out negative 8. G of 4 is our last one. We're going to use 4 to synthetically divide. We are looking for, I have 1x cubed I have negative 3x squareds, I have 5x's, and I have a negative 12 as my constant. So once again, that's my x cubed, x squared, x constant. Carry down the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 5 plus 4 is 9. 4 times 9 is going to be 36. Negative 12 plus 36 is going to be 24. It doesn't ask for my remainder or quotient. All it asks is for the answer. So our answer is going to be g of 4 equals 24. Honestly, as weird as it seems, sometimes synthetic division is actually easier than plugging stuff in. I didn't need a calculator at all. And sometimes people pull out calculators as soon as there's a cube. So there are times where synthetic division is actually easier than plugging it in. You don't get those huge numbers. It just ends up with your answer. All right. Any questions for me on any of that? Whew. All right, then. The rest of the time will be for you to work. I am going to walk around